This is Eric Mwathe for the weekend of July 19th and July 20th. Let's take a look at how the markets ended the week on Friday. The Dow was up 123 points or 0.73%. Nasdaq was up very nicely, 1.57%. S&P 500 was up 1%. The gold was down 0.57, but take a look at how VIX had a big move low, 17% down for Friday's session. And I think this action in the VIX plays a big part into which direction the market is going to go over the next couple of weeks. Before I go into the chart analysis, I want to show you some example here of what I'm going to be looking at, and this is the representation of the RSI on any time frame. And of course I'm using 69.10 instead of 70, and so usually on your charts that's going to be 70 there, and I'm using 30.90 instead of the usual 30. And the reasons why I use 69.10 and 30.90 is actually because there's a reason for that, and you can check out my videos on YouTube where I discussed these numbers here and their importance. But I want to show you what I'm going to be talking about here, and we go by taking a look at the RSI. So on the RSI, on some of the charts I'm going to be showing you, you're going to see some type of an action that goes like this. So you're going to see a straight line on the RSI, especially on the, I believe on the S&P 500, and I'll show you that. So the S&P 500 was bumping against this top line on the RSI, broke out. So it broke out above this declining RSI line. So this was a buy signal on the way up. What I want to show you is that you'll see that now it's been bouncing off the same line. So when you extend this line that was breakout, if you extend that line, you'll see that some of the markets are bouncing off the same line, and each time they bounce off this line, this happens to be a buy signal. You buy here when support is established, and you also buy here. So some charts are showing us that type of action. You'll also see that on some of the daily charts, the market had initially had some type of action like that. So the market broke out above this declining top line here. Let me draw it different. So the market broke out there. That happens to be a buy point there, and what you do is you draw a straight line, very simple, and in the future every time the market comes and bounces off this line with uniform action, that becomes a buy, and if it does it again, you just have to conclude that's a buy. So I'm going to show you some markets that are doing that. And as for the VIX, especially, you'll see that the VIX on the hourly, every time it hits that RSI line, that becomes a high on price. It comes again down the road many months later, weeks later, hits that line, that becomes a sell signal for the VIX. Buy signal for the market, comes back like it's done recently and does something like that, which is uniform action above the line, back below it, so that becomes a sell signal. So I'm going to show you some of those examples. I'm just showing you here as an illustration so you can follow along with some of my analysis. So let's take a look at the Nasdaq weekly. And first things first, you'll notice that there's a red line here on the charts. Now this chart goes back to 2011 on a weekly chart time frame, and you can see that previously this has been sell signal every time the market went above that and below it. That was a high there, above that level and below it with uniform action. That was a very easy high there. But what I want to sensitize you to is when the market stays above that same line, like it did in this period here. So this period here, the market has been bouncing off this line. The market has done very well because the market has managed to move from here all the way to here, and because it was holding this line here, that held. And so now you see what the market it's trying to do here is, if it continues recapturing that level there, which is above the line, and I'm talking about this line, then that's going to be where you want to go long the market. Hope that makes sense. Another way you can look at this is the previous weekly closing high of 4336.22 was being tested this week, and you can see the market held. did not close below that level. It also bounced off the 10-week moving average, all to say that the market actually, after a slight pullback, looks like it wants to go higher. I know that's surprising to me. It's actually surprising to most observers that the market closed positive. In fact, I forgot to share with you the closing prices for the week. Let's do that. S&P 500 for the week was up 0.54%. Surprise, surprise. The Dow for the week was up 0.92%. Another surprise after what seemed like was going to be a down week. And we see that the Nasdaq was up 0.38%. So go back to the charts here. So we see that we held the previous buy point here, so which is good. And also you'll notice that the MACDs on a weekly time frame for the Nasdaq, they remain above zero, confirming that week to week the market continues being strong. Take a look at the Nasdaq daily. And so you can see here now is a first example of what I was talking about, is the market had broken out here. So there was a breakout somewhere here. And so you do a straight line. You can see that we bounced off that line there back above the 50. And that's why as we move back above 50, we have a big up day. Yesterday we moved below 50, or let's call it Thursday we moved below 50, which was a big down day. So it kind of makes sense to me that the market is bouncing higher here. And also you'll see that there's daily support coming from the lows of the RSI. So if you draw the lows line on the RSI, the market is back above and bouncing off this line. All this to say that the market seems healthy. And you'll also see that the daily breakout here held. So we've had a couple of days where the market intraday has come very close to this level here but has held. So that's positive. Also the daily MACDs, and I have 3 levels of MACD settings here, but all of them are above zero. That's what's important. All the MACD settings are above zero. So you really, or this one is trying to recapture that zero area here. You really have to be looking for sell signals in the market, because I personally don't see them after today's action. Yes, the market was breaking down as of yesterday, but today's action was okay. And also you'll see that on the hourly chart for the Nasdaq, we made a slight lower low on an hourly basis, and we made a higher high in price. So that's good. Okay, now short term, I don't know what the market is going to do, because we do have some type of resistance. Hope you can see that. So there's a channel here, so we can say that the market is trading between this line and this line here. So that's a wedge. Anything above the line here, anything above that, that's bullish. If the market finds resistance and starts trending lower and breaks that line here, that's bearish. So for now, the market seems healthy. I haven't seen anything that tells me it's going to sell off that significantly, just because it's bouncing where it needs to bounce. Also, you'll see that the MACDs on an hourly basis for the Nasdaq also, they are also back above zero here and also here. So that tells me that momentum is starting to flip to the bullish side. Take a look at the Dow Jones weekly. We continue having this resistance on this level. Let me show you the level that the market has been finding resistance here. We've been unable to move above this level here over the last couple of weeks. So a breakout above that is going to be bullish. If that continues being a stall point, then maybe the market is just over time going to grind lower. Now we saw the same thing in Europe, where there was a lot of resistance similar to this type of resistance. Eventually they did pull back. So the Dow needs to break out above that level, otherwise it could run into some type of resistance. If you take a look at the Dow daily, and this is very easy to see because you see that on the lows for the RSI, this line has held, and this line held previously here, which was this nice low there, perfect entry. There was a support on that level there, which was this low, and you can see another support here, which was this low, and the last day or so support here, which is this move that was seen on Friday. Also the MACDs continue being above zero on the daily time frame for the Dow here and here. So day to day the market still continues being bullish. If you take a look at the Dow 60-minute chart, early in the week we were finding resistance on the top side here, and that is why I think the pullback took place on Thursday. So we were finding resistance. We haven't really moved above this channel here, so we'll see whether it continues being resistance, and we're also seeing resistance on the top side of the RSI. So it made sense Thursday that we were selling off, because this is a resistance we've been watching for most of the week. Once we confirmed that with a double top here and here, the market was poised to go down. So we are seeing that on the downside, support has been coming on this line, which has been successful, especially if we take a look at the S&P 500 hourly chart. But for now, let's just look at the Dow. Let's go to the S&P 500 weekly before we go to the hourly for the S&P 500. We continue trading very close to these channel highs on the weekly. So this is a parallel channel, try to say that, and it's holding, but this could be an area of resistance, one we've been watching. Okay, also watch the S&P 500 as it gets close to 69.10. If it stays above 69.10, that's going to be bullish. Let's take a look at the daily for the S&P 500, because that's one of the settings that I was talking about. So you can see that the S&P 500, if you take this line here, which is in green, but I'm drawing in blue here, this line, there was a breakout here above that level, which was this breakout entry point. We've bounced off this line once, which was successful, which was here. Well, now we are bouncing off this line again, holding above 50, which is this level here. So to me, given this chart, as long as the market is holding above the line here, my thinking is the market moves higher. As long as we are holding above this line on the daily RSI, I think the market is going to move higher. S&P 500 hourly. Let's take a look at the hourly here, and you can see very clearly that this green line here, this green line has been support on the S&P 500. If you take a look at the arrows pointing high or pointing higher, the green arrows, this is where the market has been bouncing, and as of Thursday's close, somehow the market also managed to bounce off that level there. So that was entry point on a short-term basis, especially if you're a day trader, and also if you draw this line like this, you see that this line connects the lows on an hourly basis for the S&P 500. And on this chart, I'm using S&P 500 hourly with the RSI setting of 21. So the setting of 21 gives you this nice support, explaining why the market is moving higher. So right now we have support on the hourly for the S&P 500, and the MACDs are also confirming that there's momentum to the upside, because both of the MACDs are now back above 0. One of the strongest arguments for the market moving higher is the VIX, and I've been talking about this for maybe a week or so. The point that the VIX has been struggling. Now you see it had a big move on Thursday, but what happened between Thursday and Friday is interesting, because now we come back to this level on the daily chart for the VIX, and every time the market has hit this level, the VIX has made a short-term high. The general market was a buy. We did the same thing here, which was this high for the VIX. If you bought the market after this signal here, you made a lot of money on the upside, or at least you on the right side of the trade. Here was a high for the VIX. The general market was a buy. Another major high for the VIX, because it hit that level twice and moved back below it. Each instant was with uniform action. So that was a sell signal somewhere around here, and the market was a buy. Short-term high for the VIX there, because of this, it hit that level and moved lower. That's a short-term entry for the market. Same type situation here, hit that level on very close to that line on the VIX on the daily RSI, which was that high. The market was a buy at that point, and you can see over the last day and a half, 2 days, we formed uniform activity above the line, back below it, which means that this is a sell signal for the VIX. That's all that means. Also, you can see the same type action on the VIX hourly, which is now giving us a sell signal for the VIX, buy signal for the market, because this level here is where it's been finding resistance, and I don't have to repeat that, but this is uniform action above the line, back below it. So that's one way to look at it. And also, if you take a look at the highs of the hourly RSI, and I'm using a period of 26 on the RSI here, so 26, if you draw a straight line, you can see that this has been telling you the highs on the VIX For example, the high here, which was this high, recent highs here, where the market was back into bullish action, and we see here this spike looks like it's a fake because the VIX has come back to this sell point. So to me, the VIX is telling me that the market wants to move higher unless the VIX can change the chart. That's how we should look at it, that the market actually wants to bounce. Lastly, let's take a look here at Apple, which is still holding above 91.48, which is the previous monthly closing high. So it continues doing good, and it is still holding above 69.10 on the monthly, suggesting that it continues trading in an healthy pattern. So anything above 69.10 on the monthly RSI is positive. Anything above 91.48 on the monthly price channel or the price action is good.